Am I the a-hole for going forward and refilling the divorce procedures after my wife canceled now that she is getting the help she needs for her postpartum depression? I, 29 male, was in a relationship with my soon-to-be ex-wife, 28 female, for 8 years. Everything was what I would describe as nearly perfect. Small arguments here and there, but nothing really significant or relationship-altering. That all changed 13 months ago after she got pregnant. The pregnancy wasn't a surprise, as we were trying for a baby. I seriously don't know what went wrong, but around the 4-month mark, my wife completely made a 180-degree switch from the kind, caring, and sweet woman she used to be to a total tyrant. I know it's harsh to say, but that's honestly the best way to describe it. I'm completely serious when I say that even my breathing became an issue for her. She would wake me up at 2 to 3 in the morning because she wanted something specific, and she'd become verbally abusive if I refused to drive 40 minutes to get her some ice cream she was craving. Once, she went on a tirade because she wanted Chick-fil-A on a Sunday and the place was closed, calling me a useless husband and every name under the sun. I wasn't allowed to sleep in the same bed as her, but then would get blamed in the morning for not sleeping in the same bed. If I cleaned the house, it was too loud. If I didn't, she'd get mad. I'd cook something she'd requested only for her to suddenly not want it. I bore it all, every insult, every bit of verbal abuse. I never raised my voice at her during this time. I begged her to get help, to talk to a doctor, a therapist, her mother, anyone. But she refused, which only made things worse because apparently by suggesting help, I was calling her crazy. I went with her to the doctor once and brought up the mood swings, but the backlash I faced afterward wasn't worth it. I also spoke with her mother, who tried to help, but my wife acted overly sweet in front of her, making it seem as if I was the crazy one. Even when I had video evidence, she made it seem out of context, turning people against me. 4 months ago, she gave birth. It wasn't an easy birth, but I was hopeful things would turn to normal. Instead, postpartum depression set in. Again, I tried to help. I researched, suggested ways to get support, and even spoke with a therapist on my own to learn how to better support her. But nothing I did was right. She accused me of calling her a terrible wife and mother, even though those words never left my mouth. Things reached a breaking point when she started becoming physically violent. My last straw was when she smashed a coffee cup on my head after a small argument because I took too long to bring her a cup of coffee. I was busy changing our son's diaper. This was the first time in 8 years that I raised my voice at her and told her we were done, that she needed to pack her things and leave. She went to her parents' house, and although she wanted to take our son, I didn't allow it. When she threatened to call the police, I pointed to the hallway camera and told her to go ahead, as it had recorded everything. A week later, I was served divorce papers. I had intended to file myself, but hadn't had the time with work and taking care of our son. 3 weeks ago, when I got back from work, my in-laws were waiting for me. Apparently, they had convinced her to see a therapist after they threatened to kick her out. I should become as abusive to them as she was to me. They finally believed me and understood that I wasn't making things up. They gave me a letter from her before they left. In the letter, she apologized for the way she'd treated me, saying she didn't know why she did it and had no excuse. She explained that after her parents threatened to kick her out, she saw a therapist and psychiatrist and is now on medication. She said she stopped the divorce proceedings and wanted to give us another chance. I haven't responded to her letter and instead instructed my lawyer to proceed with the divorce. I handed over the letter to my lawyer, as it includes a lot of details about her behavior and her admissions of abuse. I also have video evidence, including footage of her breaking the coffee cup on my head and my hospital visits for stitches and burns from the hot coffee. Now, people are telling me I'm the a-hole for not giving her a second chance, especially now that she's getting the help she needs. They say I should forgive her to keep our family together, that if I truly love her, I should be able to forgive her actions while she was not in her right mind. They're calling me a monster for not understanding what she went through. But my question is, why didn't she take the help I suggested? I did everything humanly possible to support her, but she refused and made me out to be the villain. Nothing I did was ever right or enough. Even when I removed myself from situations, I was wrong. I have more than enough evidence to seek full custody of our son. and a prenup that protects everything I own, including the house. Am I the a-hole for refusing to continue in this relationship and proceeding with a divorce? Edit to add, I am going for full custody of my son. My lawyer says there is no guarantee, but she doesn't see any reason why a judge wouldn't grant me full custody. Also, I did a paternity test, and my son is biologically mine. I checked my wife's messages just before the birth to be sure, and there were no suspicious or deleted messages. Now for the top comments. Your in sickness and in health vows only went so far, but honestly, not even trying to check on the current state is a pretty poor show for those wedding vows. Nowhere did I promise to just shrug off abuse and to possibly put my son through that. Please remember your advice if a woman asks if she could leave her abusive husband. Not a-hole. You and your son were not worth her getting help over, but her parents are? She abused you. No matter the circumstances, she doesn't get to play the victim now. Her parents weren't. Her own selfish desire was. She was scared of homelessness. Agreed. You're definitely not the a-hole here. It sounds like you've been dealing with a lot of emotional and physical abuse from your wife, and you've done everything you could to help her, including suggesting therapy and offering support. When someone refuses help and becomes abusive, especially during a vulnerable time like postpartum depression, it's not your responsibility to keep trying to make it work, especially when your safety and well-being and your child's are on the line. Her seeking help now is a positive step, but that doesn't erase what happened. You have every right to prioritize your well-being and your son's future, especially given the evidence of abuse and how she's treated you. Moving forward with a divorce and full custody is understandable, as you're looking out for your son and creating a safer environment for both of you. Keep doing what's best for you and your child. Postpartum depression is very real, and give her a second chance to get back to being a normal person. She destroyed her body and mind making you a father. Most people handle that fine. She didn't. Give her the opportunity to recover from her mental illness and stay separated until she does. She either recovers or she doesn't, but to throw your entire relationship away and give up on her because she has a very real mental illness is not looking at the full picture. She threw it away. I tried for months, and I'm done trying. If I did something even remotely similar, would your advice to her be the same? Why should I continue? She refused to get help until she had no options left, until everyone turned their backs on her. Now I'm suddenly good enough again? But for months I was treated like a useless stain on the carpet. I was told to F off just for breathing in the kitchen while she sat in the living room. Apparently my breathing was too loud and irritated her. There was no other noise. I literally walked into the kitchen and her words were, F off, you're breathing too loud, and it's irritating me. If you had postpartum and acted that way, I'd give the same advice. Or if you had a real mental illness for that matter. Have you looked into exactly how postpartum can ravage a woman's mind? It can really mess them up. And if she didn't act this way before, why are you struggling to feel empathy for her now? If she was already unglued and postpartum made it worse, I'd agree it's not worth saving. But I'd suggest doing some research on the mental illness before signing anything to make this permanent. It should go without saying that her actions were traumatic for you. But if her postpartum was that severe, it wasn't really her doing those things. It sounds like she lost control of her mind shortly after birth. If you were in love with her before all this started, maybe see if she can recover. Like I've been saying, postpartum is very real. It can completely ravage a woman, and they can fully recover. Okay, so if I have a breakdown or a mental crisis and abused my wife, that would be fine? I did research. I spent the night talking to experts, booked appointments with therapists for advice, and nothing I did was right in her eyes. Apparently, wanting her to get help or offering any suggestions was me calling her crazy, a terrible person, or mentally ill. The other thing that bothers me is that, in public, she was fine. When her parents or friends were over, she was the kind, caring person I knew. Even during the 2-week stay her mother had at our house, she acted normal until they left. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking up my family and purposefully causing my stepmom to lose her child's custody and my father his? I, 24 male, moved away from home at the start of the pandemic. Back home, I have a younger brother, 12, and a stepsister, 10. I always had a fantastic relationship with my stepmother, better than I did with my father and mother, honestly. We were always really close and felt like a real family. During the pandemic, it was clear that both my father and stepmother experienced a decline in mental health. While they showed signs of stress, they never became abusive or bad parents, at least not initially. However, things took a turn about a year ago. They were expecting their first child together, and at first, everyone, including me and my siblings, was incredibly happy for them. But then things started to change. My stepmother began showing signs of instability and abusive behavior. I think it started affecting my father first because he withdrew, burying himself in his work and drinking, becoming extremely distant. When he effectively removed himself from the situation, the focus of her anger seemed to shift onto my siblings. They began telling me how she was always angry, yelling, and constantly berating them for trivial things. I initially thought it was pregnancy hormones taking its toll on her, and I assumed it would get better eventually. So, I comforted them as best as I could and told them we needed to be understanding since she was going through a hard time. But it never stopped. The baby is now 6 months old and the situation has only worsened. I tried to talk some sense into my father, but nothing came of it. When my brother came to me with a bruised face and told me she had hit him, I lost it. I didn't even contact my parents. I collected all the evidence I could, went straight to the authorities, and then informed my mother and my stepsister's father in that order. I didn't care about my father and stepmother anymore. My siblings were my priority. After a series of legal procedures that I frankly don't fully understand, my mother now has a custody of my brother. My stepsister is with her father, and the baby is staying with my paternal grandparents while his permanent situation is being decided. Since then, I've taken a lot of heat from both families for not attempting to address this issue within the family before going to the police. They argue that I should have gone to the authorities only as a last resort, and that I destroyed the family by not trying to be the bigger person and resolve things like an adult. My stepmother, especially, has been relentless, using every chance to talk to me about it. Eventually, I told her, going to the cops was me being the bigger person. If I'd really done what I wanted, you'd be eating through a tube in a coma from the beating I'd have given you. Honestly, that's exactly what I wanted to do, and the only reason I didn't was because she has a baby and a daughter of her own. I also wanted to beat the heck out of my father for neglecting his children. He's very lucky that my brother still loves him. Not the a-hole. You did everything right. Going to them would have put them in defense mode and they may have hidden things and coached the kids. Your stepmother has clearly had some sort of mental breakdown. Hopefully she gets the help she needs out of this. You're a hero to those kids. Yeah, I honestly don't know what's up with her. But at this point, I'm not exactly sure I care anymore. At least not as far as the kids are concerned. She burned that trust, mental breakdown or not. Some type of psychosis brought on by pregnancy. But once she physically abused the children, the authorities need to be brought in. Not a-hole, and tell both of them that you went to the authorities first because you no longer trusted them with your siblings' safety due to their own actions. That they are entirely to blame for the situation they're in, and that the way they're trying to blame you proves that they're mentally incapable of taking responsibility for their own actions and would not have made necessary changes had you talked to them first. That your priority will always be the health and safety of the children, not the adults who abused them, period. And tell both of them that you went to the authorities first because you no longer trusted them with your siblings' safety due to their own actions. Yeah, it really comes down to this, to be honest. Father was drinking himself away, being too scared to stand up to his wife, and she was too blinded by whatever she has going on to realize she was abusing kids and that she needed help. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she got married and demanded I adjust my lifestyle for her husband? Okay, so I, 28 female, have a pretty established routine. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, and while I'm not a neat freak, I like my space to be organized and have a certain vibe. Think minimalist, calm, and quiet. My sister, 30 female, recently got married to a guy, 31 male, who I barely know. They live about 3 hours away, and since their wedding a month ago, she's been asking to stay with me for a few weeks. Normally, I'd be fine with it. I love my sister. But there's a catch. When I agreed, she dropped the bomb that she's bringing her husband with her. Apparently, he doesn't feel comfortable being alone for extended periods, so she wants me to adjust my lifestyle for them as a couple. This means rearranging my apartment for them, having quiet hours during the day because he works from home, and no longer playing music or hosting friends when they're around. Oh, and she suggested I stop using the guest room for my own hobbies, which is how I unwind after work. Basically, I'm supposed to cater to their needs and make space for their relationship. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that, especially since I don't even know her husband that well, and wasn't planning on turning my home into a mini hotel or daycare for them. She got super upset, called me selfish, and said it's just for a couple of weeks. But I'm really not okay with it. I feel like I would be giving up a lot of my personal space and peace of mind just for her convenience. Now, she is threatening not to visit at all, and I'm feeling guilty but also feel like she's overstepping. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to let them stay under these conditions? It sounds like she wants to move in and live with you rent-free while, not really, searching for a place to live. Not the a-hole. Your sister sucks. Sounds like they got evicted and have decided to take over OP's home. Sounds like they'd prefer OP to move out for a few weeks, but are willing to let her stay if she just goes to her room and leaves them alone while they're there. Not the a-hole. Something fishy is going on here. Why would they expect you to rearrange your apartment, move out your hobby stuff, and basically change everything for them just for a few weeks? This sounds more like a case of, we need somewhere to stay, but no will be told no, so we'll visit for a few weeks, and then OP won't be able to get rid of us, because she'll be leaving us homeless. So we can stay for longer and longer until OP has to evict us, or accepts that this is our home now. And even if it isn't that, who the heck as a guest asks someone to rearrange everything for them? My cousin has stayed at my house a lot, and not once has he demanded that I rearrange everything for him. Either your sister and her husband are crappy and demanding guests, or they are crappy and demanding mooches trying to con their way into your home. Either way, say no. It will only end badly. The only excuse I can see for a guest to ask for a brief rearrangement is if they either have an infant and need a space in a guest room for a cradle, or they have a walker/wheelchair and need maneuvering room. Obviously, neither applies here. I agree with everyone suggesting that the sister is trying to move in and take over OP's apartment. Not the a-hole. It's your space, and it sounds like she's asking for a lot. A couple weeks is a long time to live in a situation that's making you uncomfortable. Thank you for all the reassuring words.